The words hit me like a slap across the face. Julian's voice carried across the dinner table, loud enough for everyone to hear. Iris is financially irresponsible. Always has been, always will be. He laughed, swirling his wine glass like he'd just told a clever joke. My daughter Lena looked down at her plate. My husband Howard cleared his throat but said nothing. I sat frozen, fork halfway to my mouth, feeling 20 pairs of eyes on me. The restaurant chatter faded into background noise. Julian kept talking, explaining to his business partner why people like me shouldn't be trusted with money. He used words like reckless and naive. Each one landed heavy in my chest. I wanted to speak to defend myself, but my voice caught. Howard finally spoke. Julian has a point, dear. You've always been more emotional than practical about finances. The betrayal burned worse than the insult. I set down my fork, hands shaking, and excused myself to the restroom. Nobody followed. 2 days later, Julian appeared at my door. Gone was the arrogant smirk from the restaurant. He wore a crisp suit and carried a leather briefcase. Iris, do you have a moment? His voice was honey-sweet now, professional. I invited him in, curious despite the anger still simmering in my chest. He sat on my couch and opened the briefcase with careful precision. I'm expanding my company. It's a huge opportunity. But the bank requires a co-signer with established credit history. He pulled out thick documents, placing them on my coffee table. I need you to approve and co-sign this loan. It's just a formality, really. I stared at the papers, then at him. The same man who'd humiliated me 48 hours ago now needed my signature. Howard appeared from the kitchen, nodding encouragingly. Lena texted me, "Please, Mom, this is important for us." Julian smiled confidently, pen extended toward me. I took a slow breath. "I'll think about it," I said quietly. His smile faltered. Julian called 3 times the next day. Each voicemail grew more urgent. "Iris, we're on a tight timeline here." Howard cornered me in the kitchen that evening. "Why are you being difficult? Just a signature. Do it for Lena." I poured myself tea, letting the silence stretch. "He called me irresponsible in front of everyone," I reminded him. Howard waved his hand dismissively. "He didn't mean it like that. Julian's under pressure. This expansion could set them up for life." Through the window, I watched Julian's car pull up. He'd brought Lena this time. My daughter hugged me, whispered that I was being unfair. "He apologized to me privately," she said. "This is business, Mom. Don't let pride ruin their future." I looked at her face, so eager and trusting. Then at Julian, standing by the door with barely concealed impatience. "I'll approve it," I said finally. Julian's shoulders relaxed. "But I need to review all the paperwork first. Every page. Every clause." The documents arrived by courier the next morning. 300 pages of legal language, financial projections, and risk assessments. I spread them across my dining table and began reading. Really reading. By page 40 I found the first problem. Revenue projections that didn't match market analysis. By page 70 another issue. Missing disclosures about existing debts. I made notes in the margins with red pen. When Julian came by that afternoon, I had questions ready. "These numbers seem inflated. What's your basis for this growth projection?" He laughed, that same condescending chuckle from the restaurant. "Iris, you wouldn't understand the complexities of commercial real estate. These are industry-standard projections." I tapped my pen on a highlighted section. "This liability disclosure is incomplete." He leaned back, crossing his arms. "You're overthinking this. The bank's lawyers already approved everything." I closed the folder. "Then adding one small clause won't be a problem." Julian barely glanced at the clause I'd written. His eyes scanned it for maybe 10 seconds before he shrugged. "Fine, whatever you need to feel comfortable." He signed where I indicated, eager to finish. The clause was simple. Standard accountability language requiring transparent reporting and giving the co-signer oversight rights on expenditures over certain amounts. Nothing unusual. Nothing he should have worried about if his business was legitimate. I signed my name carefully, watching him practically snatch the papers away. Thank you, Iris. This means everything. He was gone within minutes, already on his phone celebrating with someone. Howard patted my shoulder. See, that wasn't so hard. I sat alone at the table after they left. My laptop was still open to the spreadsheet I'd been building. Years of tracked expenses, analyzed patterns, documented concerns. I opened a new folder and labeled it Contingencies. Then I began uploading every document Julian had given me. Nobody knew about my past. Not really. I'd spent 23 years running a financial consulting firm, specializing in risk assessment for mid-sized companies. I'd built it from nothing, working 16-hour days while Lena was young. When a national firm offered to acquire us, I'd negotiated hard and walked away with enough money to retire comfortably at 54. But I never bragged about it. Never flaunted it. Howard knew I'd had a successful career, but he'd never asked details. Lena thought I'd worked some office job before becoming a stay-at-home mom. The truth was simpler and more complicated. I'd learned early that being underestimated was sometimes an advantage. People revealed more when they thought you couldn't understand. Made mistakes when they believed you weren't watching. That night, I pulled old textbooks from my office closet. Accounting principles, business law, risk management theory. I hadn't opened them in years, but the knowledge was still there, waiting. Julian had no idea who he'd just signed a contract with. 3 weeks passed. Julian's social media exploded with updates. Pictures of a new luxury car. Dinner at expensive restaurants. Posts about expanding the empire and living the dream. I watched quietly, taking screenshots. Each purchase, each boast, each public declaration of success. Meanwhile, my laptop pinged with automated alerts. The loan monitoring system I'd set up flagged unusual activity. Large withdrawals. Delayed vendor payments. Missing compliance reports that should have been filed. I printed everything, organized it into folders by date and category. Howard asked once why I was spending so much time on the computer. Just some hobby research, I told him. He didn't push further. Lena called to thank me again, gushing about their new house plans. Julian says the business is doing amazing. You really helped us, Mom. I smiled into the phone, saying nothing about the red flags multiplying in my files. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I'd arrived early to Lena's house for dinner, letting myself in with the key she'd given me. Their voices carried from the kitchen. Julian's laugh, then Lena's response. I know, right? Mom's actually being useful for once. They both giggled. She had no idea what she was signing, Julian added. Probably thought she was doing us a huge favor. More laughter. I stood in the hallway, grocery bags heavy in my hands. My daughter. My own daughter. Mocking me with a man who'd publicly humiliated me. I set the bags down silently and walked back out. Sent a text saying I wasn't feeling well. That night I changed my approach. No more family updates. No more oversharing. No more assuming anyone had my back. I'd spent years being the helpful mom, the supportive wife, the woman who smoothed everyone else's path. Where had it gotten me? I opened my laptop and began documenting everything with clinical precision. The first payment delay happened in week 6. A minor documentation issue. Julian had failed to submit required quarterly reports, triggering an automatic hold on the next funding tranche. My phone rang within an hour. What did you do? Julian's voice was sharp, accusatory. I didn't do anything, I said calmly. The loan agreement requires quarterly reporting. You missed the deadline. He sputtered. That's ridiculous. Nobody actually enforces that. I pulled up the contract on my screen. Page 47, Section 12, Subsection C. The bank takes compliance seriously. Silence on his end. Then, You're sabotaging me. Kept my voice level. I'm following the terms you signed. Submit the reports, and the hold will lift. He hung up without goodbye. Howard approached me later. Julian's upset. Can't you just let this go? I looked at my husband. Really looked at him. Let what go? Following a legally binding contract. He sighed like I was being difficult. I turned back to my computer. The whispers started subtly. Phone calls from relatives asking if I was doing okay. Concerned messages about my controlling behavior. Julian had launched a quiet campaign, painting me as difficult and unstable. I heard through Lena that he'd used words like senile and paranoid. Howard suggested maybe I should ease up. That I was making things harder than they needed to be. I said nothing. Just kept monitoring. Kept documenting. Then I found them. The emails. Julian had been corresponding with investors, making claims about company performance that directly contradicted the financial statements he'd submitted for the loan. Revenue numbers inflated by 30%. Debt obligations mysteriously missing. Partnership agreements that didn't exist. I printed every email. Cross-referenced every number. Built a timeline that showed systematic misrepresentation. Then I did exactly what the loan agreement required. I forwarded my findings to the Oversight Committee. The audit notice arrived at Julian's office on a Tuesday. He showed up at my house that same afternoon, face red, hands shaking. You reported me to the bank. I remained seated, hands folded. I reported discrepancies between submitted financial statements and claimed revenue. The loan agreement requires co-signers to flag potential fraud. His mouth opened and closed. Fraud. It's not fraud. It's business projections. I slid a printed comparison across the table. These aren't projections. These are statements of existing revenue. They're false. He grabbed the paper, crumpling it. You're trying to destroy me. I met his eyes without flinching. I'm protecting myself from liability. Something you should have considered before submitting false information. Howard appeared, trying to mediate. Can't we handle this privately? I stood up. This stopped being private when Julian put my name on legal documents alongside his lies. The audit was scheduled for the following week. Julian came back 3 days later. Different this time. Humble. Almost crying. Iris, please. I made mistakes. I can fix this. He sat across from me, hands clasped like prayer. I'm sorry about the restaurant. About everything. I was wrong. Waited. Let the silence build. Can you call them? Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I sipped my tea. Was it a misunderstanding? Did you or did you not submit false financial statements? He stumbled over words. The numbers were optimistic. Not false. Just optimistic. I set down my cup. Julian, answer this question honestly. Did you ever actually read the loan terms before signing? His face went pale. He hadn't. He'd been so confident, so certain that I was just a foolish old woman who'd sign whatever he wanted. That clause you added, he whispered. What exactly does it say? I smiled for the first time. It says I have full oversight rights. It says I can demand transparent accounting. It says if fraud is suspected, I'm legally obligated to report it. Howard packed a bag that night. Not leaving permanently, he said. Just staying with his brother for a few days. Until things calmed down. He stood in the doorway looking disappointed. I thought we were partners, Iris. You're supposed to support the family. I folded laundry, methodical and calm. I am supporting the family. By not letting them commit fraud. He shook his head. You've changed. You used to be easier. More flexible. The words stung, but they also clarified everything. Easier meant silent. Flexible meant compliant. Howard, when's the last time you asked about my day? My thoughts. My work. He blinked, confused. What work? You're retired. I nodded slowly. Exactly. After he left, I opened a separate bank account. transferred half our savings, consulted a lawyer about asset protection. If my marriage was built on me being small and quiet, maybe it was time to let it crumble. The audit results came back devastating. Overstated revenue by 33%. Misclassified expenses. Undisclosed liabilities totaling $200,000. The investment group Julian had been courting pulled out immediately. 3 major clients left after seeing the report. The bank froze the remaining loan funds pending investigation. Julian's company missed payroll that Friday. His employees started asking questions. Some quit immediately. I watched it unfold through my monitoring systems, feeling no satisfaction. Just sad confirmation that I'd been right. Lena called crying. "Mom, what did you do? Julian's business is falling apart." Kept my voice gentle. "I didn't do anything except report what I found. The audit confirmed everything." "Sub, you're destroying our lives." Closed my eyes. "No, honey. Julian did that when he lied about his finances. I just refused to go down with him." The public collapse was swift. Local business blogs picked up the story. Rising star developer faces fraud investigation. Julian's carefully built reputation crumbled overnight. The same people who'd celebrated his success now questioned everything. Comments on his social media posts turned harsh. Always knew something was off. Too good to be true. His newest luxury car was repossessed. The dream house plans dissolved. Lena stopped posting about their glamorous life. Julian made one final public post, carefully worded. He blamed aggressive accounting practices and miscommunication with financial advisors. Buried in the third paragraph was a vague reference to interference from family members. Several relatives called me. Some supportive, most accusatory. Howard's sister said I should have protected the family image. I blocked her number. I was done protecting people who'd never protected me. The family meeting was Lena's idea. Neutral location. Everyone calm. We need to resolve this. They gathered at my house on Sunday afternoon. Julian, Lena, Howard, even Howard's brother as mediator. I brought my files. Julian started talking immediately. Apologies. Explanations. How stress made him act poorly. Howard jumped in. We all make mistakes. Can't we just move forward? I opened my folder. Let's review the timeline. I laid out documents methodically. The restaurant insult. The urgent loan request. The falsified statements. The clause Julian signed without reading. Every email. Every lie. Every manipulation. This wasn't a mistake, I said quietly. This was calculated fraud. And when I caught it, I followed the law. Lena stared at the papers, realization slowly dawning. You knew. From the beginning. I met her eyes. I suspected. The audit confirmed. Julian's face went hard. So this was a trap. Not a trap, I corrected. A test. And you failed. Julian stood up abruptly. You set me up. I remained seated, calm. I gave you a legitimate business loan with standard oversight clauses. You chose to commit fraud. That's on you. Lena looked between us, something shifting in her expression. Julian, did you really lie about the revenue numbers? He started to speak, then stopped. Started again. It's complicated, Lena. She turned to me. Show me. I slid the comparison sheets across. Revenue claims versus actual deposits. Promise partnerships versus actual contracts. Her hands trembled as she read. You told me we were making 3 times this much. Julian reached for her. Baby, in business you have to project confidence. She pulled away. You lied to me too. The room went silent. Howard's brother suggested a break. Julian refused. She needs to fix this. Call the bank. Withdraw the complaint. No. The word came out firm and clear. Julian's face flushed. What do you mean, no? I stood up, meeting his height. I mean no. I won't lie to cover your fraud. I won't risk my own legal liability. I won't compromise my integrity. He stepped closer. You owe this family. I didn't back down. I owe this family honesty, accountability, things you've never given any of us. Howard tried intervening. Iris, be reasonable. I turned to my husband. I've been reasonable for 30 years. I've been quiet, accommodating. And where did it get me? Insulted at dinner. Mocked by my daughter. Used by my son-in-law. My voice stayed level, but everyone heard the steel underneath. I'm done being reasonable on everyone else's terms. Julian pulled out his phone. My lawyer says I can sue you. I almost laughed. Call him. Right now. Let's see what he really said. Julian's lawyer confirmed what I already knew. I was legally protected. Every action I'd taken fell within the co-signer agreement. Every report I'd filed was required by law. Not only could Julian not sue me, but his threats constituted potential witness intimidation. The lawyer's voice came through speakerphone, tired and exasperated. Mr. Blake, I've told you 3 times. Ms. Iris followed protocol. The issue is your financial misrepresentation, not her reporting. Julian ended the call, face pale. His business partners started calling. One by one they withdrew. Nobody wanted association with potential fraud. His accountant resigned. His lawyer suggested bankruptcy consultation. Within a week, the company that Julian had built his entire identity around was effectively dead. Lena moved back to her old apartment. Alone. Howard came home but slept in the guest room. The house felt emptier and somehow more honest. Howard finally apologized on a quiet Wednesday evening. I didn't understand what you were dealing with. I should have listened. He sat on the couch, looking older than his 60 years. I always thought you were too cautious, too worried. But you were right. I poured us both tea, sitting across from him. Howard, you didn't just fail to listen. You actively undermined me. In front of Julian. In front of Lena. He nodded, eyes wet. I know. I was wrong. Can we fix this? I considered his question carefully. I don't know. We've been married 31 years, but I'm not sure you've ever really seen me. He reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. I need space. Real space. To figure out who I am without constantly shrinking myself. He started to protest. I held up my hand. This isn't negotiable. I need to breathe. Julian's company officially dissolved in month 4. Bankruptcy filed. Assets liquidated. Employees found new jobs. The local business community moved on to newer stories. Julian himself took a sales position at a regional firm. Normal job. Normal salary. Normal life. The arrogance had been stripped away, leaving behind someone I almost didn't recognize. Smaller. Quieter. Tired. Lena got a job too. Administrative work at a medical office. She'd never worked outside the home before, always supported by Julian's income. I watched her adapt, grow, find confidence in her own earning. We talked occasionally. Careful conversations. She apologized once. I didn't defend you at that dinner. I should have. I accepted her apology but kept my distance. Trust, once broken, needed time to rebuild. Howard and I attended counseling. He tried. But something fundamental had shifted. The final family gathering happened at Thanksgiving. Just the 4 of us. Nobody suggested a restaurant. We ate at my house food I'd prepared. Conversation stayed surface level. Weather, traffic, neutral topics. Then Julian spoke. Iris, I owe you an apology. A real one. I set down my fork. I called you financially irresponsible. Said you couldn't be trusted. Made you feel small. His voice was steady, genuine. You're the only one who actually understood finance. The only one who acted responsibly. I was the reckless one. Lena added softly. I laughed at you. Called you useful like it was surprising. That was cruel, Mom. Howard stayed quiet. He'd already apologized, but he couldn't undo decades of casual dismissal. I looked at each of them. Thank you for saying that. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. After dinner they lingered over coffee. Awkward but trying. Julian asked about my career. Actually asked. Lena seemed surprised when I described my consulting firm, the acquisition, the success I'd built. Why didn't you ever tell us? She asked. I smiled sadly. Would you have listened? Or would you have found ways to minimize it? She looked down. That's fair. Howard cleared plates and I let him. Julian fidgeted with his napkin. What happens now? With the loan? I'd expected this question. The bank wrote off the losses. It's over. You won't owe anything. His relief was visible. But, I continued, if you ever start another business, you're on your own. I won't co-sign. I won't invest. I won't advise. He nodded, understanding. That's fair too. As they prepared to leave, Lena hugged me. Longer than usual. I'm proud of you, Mom. I should have said that years ago. Howard moved out 3 months later. Amicable separation. We tried, but the foundation was too cracked. He'd built a life with a version of me that didn't really exist. I'd performed that version because I didn't know better. Now I did. The divorce was simple. Assets split fairly. No fighting. No drama. Just two people acknowledging they'd grown into incompatible strangers. Kept the house. Started traveling. Took up photography. Joined a book club where nobody knew my history. I was just Iris. Not someone's wife. Not someone's mother. Not someone's joke. Just me. Lena and I rebuilt slowly. Coffee dates. Honest conversations. She was learning her own lessons about identity and worth. Julian stayed cordial and distant. We'd never be close, but the hostility had faded. Sometimes I drove past the restaurant where everything started. That dinner felt like a lifetime ago. Different woman. Different life. 1 year after that terrible dinner, I sat in my garden with morning coffee. The business world had moved on. Julian was rebuilding, more humbly this time. Lena was thriving in her career. Howard was dating someone new. I'd been asked to consult for a small firm, just part-time. Accepted. Using my skills again felt right. My phone buzzed. A message from a cousin asking for financial advice. I smiled, typing back suggestions. People were starting to ask me questions now. Starting to see the competence I'd always had. The knowledge. The precision. The strength. They'd called me financially irresponsible because I didn't make noise. Because I didn't brag. Because I let them assume weakness was the same as silence. But they'd learned. The hard way. That quiet doesn't mean ignorant. That humble doesn't mean foolish. That patience doesn't mean powerless. I'd waited. Let them reveal themselves completely. Then responded with calm, devastating accountability. No screaming. No cruelty. Just consequences. I finished my coffee, feeling the morning sun on my face. They finally saw me now. Really saw me. And I'd walked away from everyone who couldn't, choosing peace over proximity to people who'd never valued me. That was my revenge. Not destruction. Just freedom.